Today we shall discuss on the topic graphic presentation, meaning and importance of graphs. So graphs are the statistical the methods which are to be used for presenting statistical the data. So the graphs are the charts consisting of points, lines, and curves. Charts are drawn on graph sheets and scales are to be chosen suitably in both x and y axis so that entire data can be presented in the graph sheet. So therefore graphs are the statistical the methods or tools which are to be used for presenting the statistical the data, and graphic presentation of the statistical the data gives a pictorial effect. So therefore the collected data will be generally complex, that will be very difficult to understand the importance of collected data. So therefore the classification and tabulation will reduce the complexity. Still they are not easily understood by the common people. So if the mass of the data are depicted graphically, so they become easy to be understood and grasped. So therefore the statistical the measures such as quartiles, median, and mode can be found from the appropriate graph. So therefore graphs are the statistical the methods or tools which are used by the businessman and other in all in some the departments like the statistical the departments, survey the department, and other the government can also be used graphs for presenting the statistical the data and for analyzing the things and to make the various policies. So graphs are useful for analysis of time series, regression analysis, business forecasting, interpolation, extrapolation, and inverse interpolation. So therefore graphs are very essential to businessmen, and the important and most useful the statistical the tools. And the quantitative data is usually represented by graphs, though it is not quite attractive and understandable by a layman. And the classification and tabulation techniques will reduce the complexity of presenting the data by using graphs. So statisticians have understood the importance of the graphical presentation to present data in an uh, interpretable way. So the graphs are drawn manually on graph papers. So therefore the statistical data which is to be presented by drawing uh, graphs and easily that presented data can be understood by any person. So therefore graphs are the statistical the methods or tools which are to be used for presenting the statistical the data. Now construction of graphs. So how to construct graphs and what are the measures to be taken while constructing graphs. So here a quadrant is one of the four sections on a Cartesian plane, and here and each quadrant includes a combination of positive and negative values for x and y. So the four graph quadrants, there are four graph quadrants that can that make up the Cartesian plane, and each graph quadrant has a distinct combination of positive and negative values, and here are the graph quadrants and their values. So here the graphs are prepared on graph paper, in which lines are drawn dividing every centimeter into 10 equal parts horizontally and vertically. So in a graph, two simple lines are drawn at a right angle to each other, intersecting a point O, a point of origin, the which is known as origin. The vertical line is called y-axis, usually denoted by OY, and the horizontal line is called the x-axis, usually denoted by OX. And a graph is divided into four parts, namely four quadrants. So here the graphs which are prepared on graph paper, by taking a graph paper and in which lines are drawn dividing every centimeter into 10 equal parts, so horizontally and vertically. And in a graph, two simple lines are drawn, two simple lines at a right angle to each uh, other, intersecting a point known as zero, so that or O, so that known as point of origin, which is also known as origin. So the vertical line is called y-axis, usually denoted by OY, and horizontal line is called x-axis, usually denoted or represented by OX. A graph is divided into four parts, called four quadrants. So quadrant 1 is used, the first quadrant is used when the both the variables are positive, both variables, variable x and variable y, when these variables are positive, so then the quadrant 1 can be used, and this is the most generally used quadrant. And quadrant 2 is used when the value of x is negative and the y is positive, y is positive, so that quadrant y, uh, quadrant 2 can be used when the value of x is negative and value of y is positive. And quadrant 3 is used when both the variables are negative, so variable x as well as y, when these variables are having negative, when these are negative, so then quadrant 3 can be used. And quadrant 4 is used when x is positive and y is negative, when variable x is positive and variable y is negative, so then we fourth quadrant, quadrant 4 can be used. Now graph quadrants diagram. So here quadrants can be clearly illustrated here. So in this diagram, you can see the four graph quadrants, along with whether or not x and y are positive and negative. So here uh, uh, two lines are drawn, x-axis and y-axis, horizontally and vertically. And here quadrant 1, which is shown when two variables are positive, and when quadrant 2, quadrant 2, that quadrant 2 is used when value of x is negative and y is positive, y is positive, x is negative, x is negative and y is positive. And in quadrant 3, that can be used when both the variables are negative, x and y are negative. And here when quadrant 4 can be used when x is positive and y is negative. So this is illustration which is given here for understanding clearly when at what time the quadrants when these quadrants can be used. Now, advantages of the graphical presentation. What are the advantages for using graphs or graphical presentation? So, when a graph is properly constructed, so it readily shows the information that might otherwise be lost amid the details of numerical tabulations. It also shows the tendency, and prediction can be made easily while glancing. So here graphs are the effective pictorial effect, which is pictorial and effective, the statistical, the method which is used by all the businessmen and corporate in that can be used in corporate sectors, and the important the statistical tool which is used for presenting the statistical the data, and it readily shows the information that might otherwise be lost. So here the advantages of the graphical presentation are: it provides an attractive and impressive view. So it attracts all the people, it attracts the businessmen and other people, and it impresses to all the businessmen. And by seeing just we can understand clearly the statistical the data, and it saves the time, and it saves the energy. And by looking into the graph, we can analyze the things, and we can understand the clearly what are the statistical the data which is to be presented in it. And it simplifies the complexity of data, and it provides easy comparison of two or more phenomena. It needs no special knowledge of mathematics to understand a graph, and even maybe a non-mathematical person can be a non-mathematical person can also understand the statistical data by just by observing the tool known as graph, and it provides basis to locate the statistical measures like median, mode, quartiles, etc. And apart from simplicity, it saves the time and energy of the statisticians, uh, as as well as the observer. And graphic method is probably the simplest method of presenting statistical data, and it shows any trend that may be present and direction which the trend may change. So therefore these are the various advantages of graphical presentation. Now the importance of graphic presentation or the graphs. So acceptability is the first importance of the graphs, and here all the people, so businessmen can accept this type of the statistical the method or tool, because it gives a lot of information, or huge information can be can be presented in a simple manner. And by just observing the lines, this data can be understood easily, and it saves the time, energy, and it simplifies the data, and it looks like a bird eye. So therefore there are a huge importance from the graphs or graphical presentation. Such a report is acceptable to busy persons. Uh, that too, the businessmen can able to understand easily just by seeing, and it easily highlights the theme of the report, and it helps to avoid wastage of the time and comparative analysis. So here the graphs can be compared from 1 year to 1 year of the data of 1 year, one graph to another year, the data of one graph to another graph, and 1 year to another year. So the information can be compared to in terms of graph present representation. So therefore that enables quick analysis of large amounts of data at one time, and that can hide in making predictions. This is most the important thing which we can predict for future. And less cost information, if descriptive, which involves a huge time to present properly, that involves more mono to print the information, but graphical presentation can be made in a short but catchy view. So it less cost, it involves a huge time. If descriptive involves huge time to present properly, but involves more mono to print. So therefore it involves obviously it involves prepare less cost to prepare graphs. Now decision making. So here business executives can view the graphs at a glance, and they can make decisions very quickly, which is hardly possible through descriptive report. And logical ideas. So logical ideas, another the importance of the graphs. And if tables, designs, and graphs are used to rep- represent information, then a logical sequence is created to clear the idea of the audience, and helpful for less literate audience. So less literate or illiterate people can able to understand graphical representation easily, because it does not involve going through line by line of any descriptive report. So just by observing or just by seeing, even a non-mathematical person can able to understand the graphs, and they can collect or they can understand the statistical the data which is represented. And less effort and time. So to present any table, design, image, or graphs which requires less effort and time. So therefore less error and mistakes. So here errors and mistakes are very less for representing the statistical the data, as graphical representations are exhibited through numerical figures, tables, or graphs. Usually it involves less error or mistake. And then a complete idea. So a complete idea means graphs which give us a complete idea of the statistical the data, and it brings into the mind of the audience clearly, clear and complete idea. So reading 100 pages may not give any scope to make a decision, but an instant view or looking at a glance obviously makes an impression in the mind of the audience. Use on the notice board. So this is another the type of the importance of the statistical method, graphic representation. And such representation uh, can be hanged on the notice board to quickly raise the attention of the employees in any organization. Now these are the various the advantages of the graphic presentation or the graphs. Now types of graphs or different ways to represent data. There are many types of graphs which usually used by businessmen. So here among those the various different various or types of graphs. The first one is line graphs. So line graphs, this is one type of the graph which is used by businessmen for representing the statistical data, and line graphs are used to display continuous the data, and the line graphs can be useful in predicting future events. Future events can be predicted, and for and such graphs can be used for uh, to display continuous the data. So this is an example of line graphs. So line graphs, so here we can see that there is a horizontal line and vertical line. In a horizontal line, we shows x axis and y axis. In vertical line, we shows customers in store. Y axis, y is the origin, the point of origin known as origin. Ox, a horizontal line ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ox ತೋರಿಸ್ತೀವಿ, ವರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ ಲೈನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ oy ತೋರಿಸ್ತೀವಿ. ಸೊ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಏನು ನಾವು ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ಪ್ಲಾಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಹೋದಾಗ ಆನ್ ದಿ ಬೇಸ್ ಆಫ್ horizontal line, on the basis of x-axis we can and x-axis, by considering the points which are shown on x-axis, we are going to represent the values vertical line, the value of y. So therefore by just we, we are going to plot the points, and ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಪ್ಲಾಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಓ ಎಕ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಬೇಸ್ ಆಗಿಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಓ ವೈ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ತಗೊಳ್ತೀವಿ. ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಪ್ಲಾಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ನಾವು ಒಂದು ಸಿಂಪಲ್ ಲೈನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಡ್ರ್ಯಾಗ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಲೈನ್ ವಿಚ್ ಶೋಸ್ ಏನು ದಿ ದಿ ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಟಿಸ್ಟಿಕಲ್ ದಿ ಡಾಟಾ, ಒಂದು ಡಾಟಾವನ್ನು ಅದು ತೋರಿಸ್ತಾ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ. ಟೈಮ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಡೇ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ದಿ ಕಸ್ಟಮರ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ ಸ್ಟೋರ್, ಯಾವ್ಯಾವ ಒಂದು ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ ಎಷ್ಟೆಷ್ಟು ಕಸ್ಟಮರ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಅನ್ನತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು ನಮಗೆ ತೋರಿಸ್ತಾ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಪೀರಿಯಡಿಕಲಿ ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಅನಲೈಸ್ ದಿ ಕ್ವಾಂಟಿಟಿ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂ ಆಫ್ ವೈ. So this is one type of the graph known as a line graphs, and another bar graphs. So bar graphs, this is another the type of bar diagrams or bar graphs. So bar graphs are used to display categories of the data, and a bar graph is one method of comparing data by using solid bars to represent unique quantities, and a bar diagram or bar graph can be drawn either on horizontal or vertical the base, and bars are horizontal base are more common, and and a bar diagram or a bar graph is simple to draw and easy to understand, and in businessmen and in economics it is commonly used. So businessmen and economists can easily use such a type of the graph known as bar graphs. So this is an example which is quoted here for understanding purpose, textbook and the pages. So 400 plus which is shown the health, and math 600 plus 600 plus which is the pages 600 plus which is shown for math. So this is what the bars which are shown by constructing, and another the histograms. So histograms another the type of the statistical the method which is used for representing the statistic data, and a special kind of bar graph that uses bars to represent the frequency of the numerical the data that have been organized into intervals. And because the intervals are all equal and all of the bars have the same width, because the intervals are continuous, and there is no space between the bars. So histogram, this is one type of the graph which is used by businessmen and statisticians or even the economists for the purpose of representing the statistical the information or the data. So this is an illustration which is given here for understanding graph B. Total the pages which is shown on x-axis and frequency y, uh, and in the year of 1999 only five uh, the only some extent 100 50 pages which are shown, and in the year uh, 199 and 399 200 to 399 pages which are which are shown uh, the number total pages. So is to total the pages, so the total pages and frequency, total pages on x axis and frequency on the y axis. Therefore these two are line graphs, bar graphs and histogram. These are some different types of the graphs which are used for representing the statistical the data which is to be used by the businessman uh, and economist for for the underst- for the purpose of taking for the purpose of taking the various decisions and for analyzing the data and for framing the various policies and other and taking the various decisions. So such the type of the graphs, graphical the presentations, graphs, line graphs, bar graphs and histograms, which the histograms are these things which are to be used by the business men or the economist. So histogram, this is the most so histogram, this is one of the most important and useful methods of most important this is one of the most important and useful methods of presenting frequency distribution of continuous series is known as the histogram. So this is about the theoretical aspect of the graphs or graphical representation.